All right. Well, hello, everyone. Today we are joined with Jeramiah Solven, the man, the myth, the legend. Before we jump in, we have a question for you, Jeremiah.
Yeah, let's go.
So for the first 19 episodes, we just were using our computer mic. So knowing that you have a podcast and a bunch going on, we went out and bought all this stuff just so we looked official. It's actually not plugged into anything.
Yeah, these lights don't mean anything.
It's all fake.
It's all fake.
Cords don't go anywhere.
But do we look cool?
You look legit.
Yes. All right.
Credibility established.
Okay. So we look legitimate, though.
Yeah, you guys do. Credibility, like I said, established. Looking
Dude.
good.
We'll figure out how to plug it in for the next episode, but thank you.
Yeah, this will be great. Thanks for making us better, Jeremiah.
Yeah. Good stuff.
All kidding aside, actually, can I jump in for a second
Please,
here?
yeah, man.
So I was Instagram stalking you.
Hell yeah.
And a couple things. I don't know which one I should pick first, but one of them was a burpee mile.
Yeah.
What the heck is wrong with you, man?
That was my Suffering Saturday workout. Yeah.
Suffering Saturday. Tell us what that is.
Yeah. So I guess you could call it my trademark, program or challenge, right, for people, right, that want to improve themselves. It's a weekly event that I designed just to grow mentally and physically. So every week I go out and do something that pushes me and challenges me.
Love it.
Sometimes it's like super physical where, one time I ran from my house to the top of Pikes Peak, okay, which was, and back down, which ended up being like 32 miles. I didn't take very much food and water, just to
That's a challenge.
It is.
Big time.
Just to test my resilience and see what I could do. And it was a 7,000 foot climb. I finished that in about a day's time, but then afterwards, the Suffering Saturday workout was to do that plus a small workout afterwards.
Whoa!
So it was
How small was the follow-on workout?
It was just literally do any type of workout in the gym, and I didn't know what I was going to be capable of. Right.
Yeah.
So I got to the bottom of the hill, and my wife actually picked me up. So I ran from my house to the top of the mountain, back down, but I didn't run back to my house. I ended it at the bottom of the mountain.
Yeah.
That was the goal. So did that. She took me to the gym, and as I'm getting out of the car, like I couldn't move.
Yeah.
I was so broke off, and I'm literally limping into the gym. I sit down. I'm sunburnt.
Yeah.
Face is like just completely red, and I'm trying to throw around weights in there, and it was the most pathetic workout I've ever done in my life, but I got it done. So,
yeah.
So Suffering Saturday, I know that sounds extreme, but I've done other things too. Like one day I leaned more on the mental.
Yeah.
And I didn't speak for a whole day.
Nice.
That was the goal. Challenge my discipline, and turn my cell phone off at the same time. I called it the silent treatment workout, right? Full day of that, which was interesting because I still went to the store and people were like talking to me. And I was just like looking at them like deer in the headlights. So Suffering Saturday is, I know it's pretty unique for a lot of people to hear that. They're like, why the hell do you do this?
That's intriguing.
Yeah, and it can be anything from, it could be a 10-minute workout that's something you've been avoiding, or maybe an all-day event that really challenges you and pushes you. But the idea is every single weekend. So to your point, Aaron, was today's workout was the burpee mile. It's like it sounds. You do 4 laps on the track or 1,600 meters of a burpee and a broad jump, and that's it. Simple as it sounds. You just
Oh man,
it's painful.
About what part of the mile are you like? Okay, I gotta engage my mind on this and push through.
The first 2 burpees.
Yeah, immediately.
I'm like, man, I got a long way to go.
This is a mistake.
Yeah, I brought my dog out there. He was keeping me company. That was fun, but it was good. It was a good time. It's just it was a matter of just consistency and staying focused and not letting yourself talk yourself out of it. Totally manageable. It's just a grinder.
I think your dog is concerned about you.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking his perspective. Like, what is he doing?
No. We've been palling around for years now. He knows. He
knows the crazy.
Yeah, we've gotten, me and him have gotten trapped in. I got trapped in the snow with him. We've been lost in the woods together in the snow.
Yeah.
Doing ruck marches and climbing mountains and stuff. He's been through it all with me. He's a good dog.
I love it.
So it's completely familiar territory for him. But anyway.
I love it. I'm a fellow pain connoisseur.
Yes.
So right now I'm on it more of like not a slow trickle, but just a consistent trickle of pain. So every day for long expanses, I'm doing something I hate.
Yeah.
And it's been really good. So like right now it's 4:15, wake up, straight into the pool, stretch for a minimum of 10 minutes, and then whatever my workout is.
I like it.
Yeah, it's been good though, man. I've really been So and I love those like sprints too, because like even with these like things, like right now I'm on day 30 something of 100, and it's like they're good, but they become part of your rhythm. You adapt, you callous your mind to it, and then it's like, okay, it's time for 1,000 calories on the assault bike, or it's time for, I've never done a burpee mile, but I can tell you I'm about to.
Yeah,
we're going to.
Yeah, he did. You seemed like there's a light in your eye when he was talking about it.
It's an exciting idea. I've done the Devil's Mile, which is like
what is that one?
So the Devil's Mile is 400 meters of the falling force. You have your broad jump burpees. Mm-hmm. It's crab walks, lunges, and overhead plate carry. Yeah. So, and then there's the iron one, which is fun, where you yoke up and you walk like with 135 for the mile. And it's like the weight's nothing, but what sucks is your arms, everything dies.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just the pain. It's just the mental game. But never a burpee mile, so that will have to change. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, dude. I'm looking forward to seeing it on social.
Oh, dude, I'll tag you up.
Make sure you tag me in it, yeah.
So why are you doing? So you said you're trademark. So why are you doing these things? Tell us a little about
Yeah, it's a good question. So I get that question like, hey, why are you going out every week and pushing yourself and doing Suffering Saturday? What caused you to create it? And then I usually get asked, how do I create one? Is usually what people like to ask me that are interested. And like yourself, I both of you guys really, because Aaron, do you like to do hard things too?
Yes. I'm John's my friend. So.
That's the hardest thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what I've learned over the years is that, the true path to growth is always through pain. And there was a period of my time where I was reflecting on how I've grown as a person. Mm-hmm. And, I'm a very, logical, practical type of individual. I like to put things into steps. I like to systemize everything. Yeah. And if I can do that, then I can guarantee that I can continue on that path with as minimal amount of thought and energy as possible and still get to the thing that I'm working on, right?
Yep.
So I was just reflecting, and I was looking back on my life, and I had, realized I had just transformed from this really small, shy kid into, doing some pretty cool things in the military and getting into entrepreneurship. And I was, I'm like, how did this happen? Mm-hmm. How did this transformation happen? And I realized it was through all the things that made me scared, made me nervous, pushing myself through the uncomfortable things in life that produced that product. Mm-hmm. I realized it was through suffering. And so Saturdays had always been a day where I had kind of dabbled in doing harder physical things. Mm-hmm. Maybe I would do the thing maybe once a month or every couple of months I'd go do a race or something, right? Mm-hmm. Like a lot of people do. But because I'm practical and I like to systemize, I said, dude, why don't I just do this every single Saturday?
Yep. Make it a keystone habit.
Yeah. So I literally will wake up Saturday and I'll say, man, what do I not want to do today? And then I build a workout around it and try and knock it out and do it. Yeah.
Do the things you hate.
Dude, that's the cornerstone of everything. Yeah. It's the cornerstone of my business. It's the cornerstone of how I coach my clients. Everything we want is on the other side of the shit we don't want to do. Yeah. Hands down, man. So why not just do it every single day, or at least build it into your life,
Yeah.
Well, you see that a lot too. Like, I'm just thinking about when pressure starts to mount, right? If you start going down the right path, it seems like everything starts to hit the fan. Good old Murphy just comes a-knocking.
Yeah.
And the natural inclination, albeit I believe fundamentally the wrong one, is to back off then. Yep. And then you give up the things that will actually transform your life positively. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what you're talking about, attack what you hate. When you start doing something you know is good for you and everything starts to hit the fan, start smiling, baby, and just tackle that thing the best. What I like about your Suffering Saturdays, having talked about it a little bit, is you wake up in the morning and I imagine some you design in advance, but typically it sounds like you wake up in the morning and it's like, what do I least want to do? Mm-hmm. And then you're honest enough with yourself to say this. Yeah. Because you can't run from yourself anyways. And it's like...
That's the point of the workout. Yeah. It's like, there it is. I'm like, oh, shit. I don't want to do that. For example, one time, the David Goggins challenge was going on. 4 by 4 by 48, right?
Yep.
And it's Friday. I had a busy week with work. I had not committed to the 4 by 4 by 48. I was like, I'm not going to do this.
Yes.
I have other shit I'm going to focus on.
Yep.
And it started on Friday. So I said no. And then I woke up the next day and a couple of my friends were doing it. And so I'm like, what am I going to do for Suffering Saturday? And I see everybody doing the Goggins challenge, and I'm like, shit. I'm like, how can I do this, a version of this, and still challenge myself and kind of show support to my friends who are doing it? So I did 48 miles in 24 hours.
Nice, so 8 mile chunks.
I broke it up. It varied.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was 24-hour period. I was running basically from the time I woke up off and on throughout the day at midnight. And I just tried to cram it in, but it all started by seeing my friends do this 4x4x48 that I didn't want to do. And I look and I see it on social and my stomach turned and I'm like, shit, I'm doing 48 fucking miles today. And it was like made me nauseous. I looked over at my wife because we were still in bed and I was like, guess what I'm doing for Suffering Saturday? And she's like, what? And I'm like, I'm doing 48 miles. And she's just like, she raised her eyebrows. She was like, okay. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Fuck. So I did it. But yeah, so that's usually how it happens, like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
You see, you've gotten used to, like, it's like, yeah, because you've kind of made, I guess we've talked about like contract with yourself. You're like, hey, you're out. You're not giving yourself an out. You're just sort of saying like, yeah, I know it sucks, but that's not the out. The out is most time people say, well, this is really difficult. This is crazy. So I get an excuse. I get a pass on this.
Yeah.
You don't give yourself a pass.
No, I mean, since I started posting it on Instagram, I haven't missed a single Saturday in about 2 years or more.
Yeah.
It's been every single, and I mean, I almost broke my ankle one time. I broke it or sprained it really bad on a Friday and then woke up the next day.
Yeah. And you're out, right?
And I'm on crutches. Yeah. It could have been an excuse. I went
Sure.
to the Red Rocks open space and on my crutches. And for an hour, 2 hours, I was climbing mountains on my crutches. People were looking at me like I was fucking insane. And my wife was with me and she was just shaking her head laughing the whole time.
That's like Goggins says, like stealing your soul. I mean, can you imagine looking into the eyes of the person who's like, they got their nice water bottle and they're just kind of having a leisurely with their poodle, that kind of thing, and you're on your crutches just making eye contact.
I was pretty happy. I had a good time. I was sweating. I got a lot of support out there on that little hike, man. People were coming up being super friendly, man. They were like, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
You're encouraging.
What made you do this? What made you do this? And I was like, hey, man, just, had to do something today. Had to get out of the house is what I told them.
Had to get out of the house.
Didn't just affect you in that choice too.
Yeah.
Well, you talked about how since you started posting on social, you've not missed like anything in just about 2 years. And it is interesting because like social media does have a lot of positive power if you engage with it right? It's a tool.
Yeah.
And like you can use it as an accountability piece. Like, well, I'm putting it out there.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was instant. So when I created Suffering Saturday, I instantly announced that I was going to be doing it.
Yep.
And then I started showing on day one, I started, hey, this is my first Suffering Saturday workout. And so from the time I started and publishing it and committed to the plan, I've never missed it. Like when I had that epiphany of
got to do it.
I got to put something together where every week I'm challenging myself, made the decision every single Saturday, boom, something.
Yeah. And it's fun. That's good stuff. Yeah. So earlier you mentioned something that kind of caught my ear, and you were talking about how you were once a shy little kid and then you transformed. You had a pretty interesting military career from what I can see, some cool stuff there. Now you're an entrepreneur doing multiple ventures, but I'd love to hear those, like what sparked the transformation from shy, timid Jeremiah to who you are now?
Yeah. Chiseled
alabaster god dude who's sitting across the table, right?
I appreciate that, but I don't know about it. But, man, it was a series of tough decisions is what caused me to be who I am now. I grew up low income in the middle of nowhere, town of like 300 people. My dad like hijacked the television cable so we could have a little bit of TV in the house, right? We didn't have internet. I spent a lot of my time as a kid running around the woods hunting with my dad. And I've got 3 brothers, so we lived kind of a sheltered life, and we lived away from normal society. So as I started progressing, I was young for my grade in every class that I went into just because of where my birthday falls. And then because I was from a small town, I was really shy. And so as life kind of like moved on, I got into high school, and my graduating high school class, my senior class, was 100 people. So for me, that felt like I was in the middle of LA, right? It was like, holy shit, this is going from 300 people, in my little village essentially to this high school class of 100 people. So it took some getting used to, and I was the guy in high school where if the teacher called on me, one, I was always sitting in the back. 2, if you called on me, I'd get flush. I turned bright red, didn't know what to say, and choke up and not be able to do anything. So, fast forward, I turned into infantry company commander. I've led Rangers in combat, served with Rangers and from the 75th. Done some of these physical things, and it's like, how the fuck did this happen? Right?
Yeah.
Like, so it all really just started from one decision where my first dream was I wanted to be an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
So because I was small, shy from a little town, I got into high school, not a whole lot of confidence. And I tried out for the wrestling team, and I started doing okay, started making some progress. And by my senior year, I was beating people, and I'm like, man, I wonder if I can, go on to the college level and compete. And so that was my dream.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't good enough, didn't make it to the levels that I wanted to. And after high school, because I wasn't lining up to achieve that, dream as an athlete, I didn't really have any other plan. So I followed what my friends were doing,
mm-hmm.
and I went to a community college about 3 hours from where I grew up, and just honestly, I had quit on that dream, and I felt like a failure, and that was, for me, it was tough, and maybe it doesn't sound tough for a lot of people, but your first dream, like, when that doesn't happen, it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, fuck, man, you that
mm-hmm.
big letdown, and especially when you come from a small town where you don't really have much belief in yourself anyway, right? You don't really think big anyway. And
mm-hmm.
when you do start to dream and then it doesn't line up, you're like, well, I guess I'm not meant for anything significant, right? So, I went to a community college for 2 semesters and felt pretty miserable inside.
Mm-hmm.
My self-image was really bad. Saw myself as a failure athlete. And then I come home one day and I just had basically gotten to the point where I had enough. My girlfriend from high school and I had broken up.
Mm-hmm.
My best friend from high school had gone on and served in the military. I was with kind of a new group of friends, and I just was, there was just a lot of emptiness inside of me. So
yeah, it's like a who am I moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like no purpose, no direction.
Yeah.
The dream that I had before absolutely crushed, and now
Yeah.
here I am, kind of clocking in, clocking out.
Right.
No real goal inside of school.
This dead stick, like
Yeah.
going wherever.
Yeah. And it just got to the point where I walked
Yep.
home one day and I opened the door, and everybody, my friends were partying at about 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and they're really successful people now, and they've all done great. But at the time we were young, and I walked in on that, and it triggered me. And I was like, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I'm fucking done with this,
Mm-hmm.
man. So actually, I needed out. I would say my transformation started out of desperation.
Okay.
Was really the big thing. A lot of guys sign up for the military for maybe patriotism or for college education. Me, I just wanted the hell out of my situation. I needed something different. So that caused me to join the military. I picked the military because I had seen some other people go down that route, and I was like, man, their lives don't look that bad. It looks pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
They've got money coming in. They got, they're buying cars. They look like they have some stability. Let me go that way and try it out. And so anyways, I took off and went that direction, and it really just snowballed. I got into training, to basic training. That initial decision of I'm going from college into the military made my stomach turn, right? I was nervous, I was scared, and I was like, but fuck it, I got to get out of this place that I'm in. Yeah. So I go and I start getting some little victories, I go to basic, I'm a student leader. I go to AIT, Advanced Individual Training, I'm a student leader again.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm nervous as hell the whole time, but for some reason the instructors kind of keep piling on responsibilities to me. And I think what happened is I didn't want to fail, and I was so scared that whatever they gave me, I found a way to achieve success. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, I want you to take charge of your other peers here in basic training and make sure they go into the chow hall and they're out on time, right? And I'm thinking like, fuck.
They found me out.
Yeah. Like, fuck, I got to get all these guys, hurry up. I don't want to fail this, right? So it was a lot, any type of small success I had along the way came from fear of failure and not wanting to fuck it up, right?
But you showed up though, all that feeling was there. But you're like, I'm still gonna, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it was, and I think that most of my journey has been like that. I've played scared most of my life, and not lived safe.
There you go.
You know what I mean? From the time I decided to join the military, and then after that, I go through the initial stages of training. I go to Iraq. I'm there for 15 months. Okay, and I'm 19 years old when I get there. I turn 20 and 21 while I'm in Iraq. I'm starting to get exposed to a little bit of combat. We We had a lieutenant in our unit that got hit by a roadside bomb. He dies. And so I'm like there for 15 months. I'm thinking about life. And when I came into the military, I elected kind of an easier type of path. I decided to become an engineer.
Okay.
I didn't come into the combat arms.
Yep.
Okay. I picked something I thought made sense that my friends and family kind of guided me towards. And I was like, all right, I'll do this.
Yep.
So I'm overseas and I'm like, I kind of settled essentially. And I realized I had settled, gave up on my first dream. And now I'm just kind of doing what everybody else is telling me to do. So all this kind of comes to a head and I'm like, man, like what the hell am I doing with my life? You know, I'm giving up on myself. I'm not really pushing myself. You know, people are here in Iraq and they're dying. I'm like, you know, what do you really want to get out of life? And so I realized that I liked some things about the military. I didn't like some things. And I wanted to put myself in position to make a difference in the organization. So I started like reflecting on what I wanted to get, what would make me happy. And I realized that life was short and I was going to go back to school and finish what I started. I was going to get into the infantry and get off like the quote unquote bench that I felt like I was on, right? Kind of get into the fight because I felt like I belonged more on the combat side. And I wanted to take a chance on myself again. I said, you know what, dude? Yeah, you failed before, but fuck it. What do you got to lose? Yeah. So let's push, let's drive, and let's make something out of this life. And turned the corner again, went back to school, and again, scared the shit out of me. To honestly, it really did because I had to go confront something. I had to go confront college, which I had dropped out of. So I saw myself as a failure there. And then when I got back to the States, you know, back from Iraq, I'm dealing with adjustment issues. So I'm nervous again and I'm in class. And so anyways, my whole story is like that. It's like these these chapters of being super uncomfortable, leaning into it, living with that fear anyway. And then all of a sudden I get better, right? I get a little bit better and that becomes addicting for me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh shit, I grew. I got, you know, I graduated basic. That feels good. I did a deployment. That feels pretty good. Oh my gosh, I got selected for the Army's Green to Gold program. That feels good. But I'm still scared the whole time. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I get addicted to that. It was like a feeling of significance. And I just wanted to catch more of it and make myself feel good and over and over and over again, you know?
There's something so critical to being scared.
Yeah.
Like if you're not, that to me, it's more scary not to be scared because it's like you're probably settling. And so kind of to hear, to spit back at you what I just heard in a nutshell, right? So here we have this quiet backwoods dude with 3 brothers, growing up hunting, very secluded, shy, going through school, not doing well, or, you know, getting by, but very shy, timid, embarrassed when called on type of situation, and then just kind of going with the flow. And you want to be an athlete, failure struck, right? You didn't perform at the level you wanted. And that caused you to get to a place where you were broken enough to be sick and tired of being sick and tired. Yeah. So you're like, okay, I'm not going to tolerate this. I'm going to choose something to try to not live like this. Yeah. Military, you know, and then you go through that, you get some wins, you start to feel better, right? And while deployed, going through life, you're exposed to enough that you're actually asking the intentional questions about living. And you're like, oh my goodness, I'm settling. I'm doing this again. You know, I'm doing better than I was, but I'm settling right now. What do I do? And you're like, well, I'm scared of school. I'm scared of, you know. So you go back, you tackle school. You're like, I want to get off the bench, so to speak, right? Get in combat arms, which is kind of like, in some ways also, like another stab at your previous athletic career in a way because it's more physical, right? It's like, I'm going to conquer both those fears and push myself. And then you do that. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. And one of the main reasons I decided to switch directions while I was in Iraq was you know, I had some good leaders above me. I had some bad ones, right? My parents had taught me if you want to change something, you do something about it. So because I was dealing with some frustration, some leadership frustrations, I decided, okay, I got to make a change here and influence this situation. So a little bit of my decision was about that, resolving that issue that I saw. Even though really the real problem was that I was young and immature, and I was kind of putting these leaders on this pedestal and making them perfect humans, and they weren't living up to being perfect humans. So I'm like, you're ridiculous. I need to fix this. It'll be better if I'm in charge, right? Yep. And one of the other ones was like, you know, I don't like quitting shit, period. And I had felt like I quit school. So I wanted to bring that back and make a difference essentially in the military and almost redeem myself was what I was chasing, you know, from going that failed athlete to this next stream. It felt like I was going to have a chance to prove myself to myself. Like, hey man, you know, why not? Fuck it.
You know, I want to be just a word of encouragement to those who have felt that feeling of fear about something. I think of like even my own wife. She had to do some big state tests for something she was studying for. Yeah. But she had this old ghost. Like this is what kind of hear in you is like these ghosts of fears that have just stayed with you. And at some point you got to stop and say, enough, stop haunting me. I'm going to face you. And so she was like, I've never been a great test taker. And so like, well, we're going to change that, you know? Yeah. And then she faced and she like crushed it. And it's amazing that people like, if you bring the energy to the fear, like you're saying, like enough, like that's you really like, okay, this, I'm not going to live here.
And I was a lot of it too, like to make that switch happen for, at least for me, maybe this will help somebody listening, is like the calling has to be greater than your comfort, right? Like what you're being called to do at the moment, like, hey man, I need out of this situation that I'm in. Yeah. That calling has to be greater than, my comfort essentially is I would stay here. Or in the military, like, I got into Iraq, my calling was, I need to go back to school and finish what I started. Yeah. I need to put myself in a position to make a difference. Yep. And I want to bet on myself. That's what I'm being called to do. And so that calling drove me to get out of what I was comfortable doing and go back to
so good.
For the Army's Green to Gold program. Yeah.
That's so good because I see the things that you're doing and that terrifies some men, even just like, whoa, he did that. But then you're telling me, hey, I got a secret. This terrifies me too. Yeah. In fact, I'm doing it because it does terrify me. I'm doing it because it's hard. Yeah. And the only difference between you and me is that I'm willing to try it.
Yep. Yeah. Well, it's funny because you're talking about, I can fix these leadership problems, and then, because they're on this pedestal, and then you get there and you're like, oh, they were just scared human beings doing what they can.
Yeah.
I know that because I'm now the scared human being doing what I can.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
But it's good. I just want to say it again because I think it was profound. It's your calling has to be greater than your comforts.
Yeah.
Right?
Good word.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And it's motivational. I can't help but ask, like, so you do that, right? Causes you to go into the military, you go back to school, you conquer those fears, right? You serve your time, you climb, you meet the self-expectations you have for yourself, right? You still those voices. I was thinking about, when you have those fears, those ghosts, as you're calling them, how do you get rid of the boogeyman? You eliminate them, right? You have to face them head on, get rid of them. Yeah. So it's like, here you are now.
You put him back in the closet.
Yeah.
He's going to come back out.
Well, he's never,
Turn around and grab by the collar. Yeah. Okay, that's enough.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the slight tangent to where I was going to go. But it's like, when you're at war with yourself to become a better human being, there's no killing your weaker man or your weaker human, right? There's only putting them into the closet until they've gained enough strength to re-challenge your efforts, and then you have to do it again and again and again forever.
Every day.
Every single day, right? But that's the journey that you pick, knowing that for the rest of my life, this will never stop, but I'm going to put that weaker version of myself back in the closet every day, right? And that's what I'm hearing in your story. Yeah. It's encouraging.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, maybe be encouraged by that. I mean, we're talking about some physical things, and you also mentioned some other, you that you do for your Suffering Saturday. Like maybe it's mental, or maybe it's whatever. Because it doesn't really matter what it is. It just has to evoke some kind of like a fear, a pushback.
Yeah. Well, it really comes down to the question: do I want to get better, or do I not? Like if I want to get better, then how do I get there? Well, I have to do the things I don't want to do. Right? It's pretty logical. So for me, it's a clear path, and so I just feel like that makes the most sense. And then I found through doing it returns the best feelings. It brings you, it has the highest rate of return. When I do something hard, I feel great every single time, right? You guys too. And so I think in life, a lot of times we sit back and we take the easy path over the hard path over and over again. And that becomes a habit, So who I once was is a guy that kind of hid out and made his decisions around kind of hiding and playing small. And then now I'm a guy that I try to make decisions that I know that I just don't want to make. Really, to be honest, what I'm saying? But yeah.
So to that, right? So you've conditioned yourself to make the decisions you don't want to in the pursuit of your better self. Yeah. Right. And you came back in, you accomplished your goals as an infantryman, as I understand it. Yeah. What caused or triggered your next transition?
Yes.
Right?
Well, when I shifted from enlisted soldier to wanting to become an infantry officer, I applied for the Army's Green to Gold scholarship program. That was a way for me to get out of my current contract that I was under and into a new contract, which was becoming an officer. That for me was nerve-wracking. I didn't think I was good enough to get approved for that scholarship program. So when I got selected, I was pretty elated.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, holy shit, you know, you can do more, right?
Yeah.
Holy shit. And so I go back to school, and I'm thinking the whole time, now that I've got some more wins, special operations kind of gets planted in my head. And I'm like, maybe you can do more than you think, right? Like, let me just pick the hardest thing I can do. And so I'm thinking about special operations. I start obsessing about it. I start reading stuff online, and you know, it was very appealing to a guy who didn't feel like he was much as a kid to turn into this, you know, super soldier or whatever, right? Which I'm not now, but I'm saying that's the image that I saw and I wanted to be. And
it was the ideal to pursue.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I go back to school, and I have it's basically a roller coaster. I'm like, I can do this, I can't do this, right? I can. You're good enough, Jeramiah, to become an infantry officer one day. The next day, you're not good enough, right? And so I'm constantly fighting, kind of like you talked about the boogeyman.
Yeah.
Every single day, and
the weak man.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So I call my weak voice in my head, I call him Scar.
Okay.
From The Lion King,
That's
right?
great, yeah.
Yeah, because Scar's like super manipulative.
Yeah.
He's malicious, but he's also kind of a pussy, man.
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah.
So you just got to like back him up, you know, show up as Simba or whatever you want to.
If he didn't have his words, he'd be nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And he'll manipulate you all day. So I want to back him up, even if I'm just a little tiny cub, right? Like,
Yeah.
I want to back him up into a corner and then go about my way, right? So that's my goal. And
love it.
so I'm fighting him over and over again. And I have a mentor that comes into my life, and he sees something in me that I don't see in myself. He's like, you know, he basically confirms the path. He's like, hey man, I think you can get into special operations. Have you heard of the Ranger Regiment? And I really didn't hear much about the Ranger Regiment. I just saw Green Berets marketed everywhere, you know. And so I was reading a lot of Special Forces books at the time. As I started, I started researching. I wouldn't say I was reading a whole lot yet. I got into that later. But you know, I'm studying Special Forces, Green Berets. But then he comes in, and I respected this mentor that I had in school, and he plants the seed. And he was like, "Have you thought about the Ranger Regiment?" And I'm like, "What is that?" He tells me about it. He's like, you know, premier direct action raid force in the United States Army. You know, they're the elite infantry. He's like, "I think you can do it." And I'm like, "Really? Fuck, man." So he kind of plants the seed, and I'm like, all right, you know, I want to pursue a career in special operations. The first milestone is the infantry, so let me try out for it. At the end of college, they ask you what do you want to branch? You know, what branch do you want to come into? And I wrote down literally infantry, and they came back to me and they were like, you can't.
I was going to say they kicked that back.
Yeah, they kicked that back 100%. But I was that guy. I was like, there's nothing else. I don't want any of this shit.
Yeah.
And so anyways, I threw some stuff down, and you know, I'm naturally competitive at heart, and so I worked my ass off, and I failed a lot of tests in school. But I went back, and I ended up qualifying and graduating in the top 10% of my peer group for ROTC students, and landed the infantry contract. Nice. So I got in, and then I don't want to go too into detail, and bog us down with like the infantry story. But the next leg was getting into special operations, and I had another mentor that came in and did the same type of thing. He was my company commander as an infantry platoon leader. And he was like, "Hey, I think you can go on and serve at the Ranger Regiment. You should do it."
That is such a place of flow. I feel like when you can take a challenge and you did the challenge, and then all of a sudden there's more opportunities open to you. Yeah. But those opportunities also equal weight. It's sort of, I don't know, if it's like if you're climbing a ladder and you just learned how to even climb the ladder. It's like, oh, great. All right, now try doing it with one leg. Oh, hey, now try it with this pack of rocks on your back. Like, can I do these things?
Yeah.
But you don't know it until you weren't even qualified to get to that level until you made the first decision. The next one. This is kind of what's happening. It's sort of like, hey, good job. Now let's do something that's even harder.
Yeah.
Well,
I think you need to listen. I like to say you need to listen to the whispers.
Yeah.
Right. And the whispers are your positive self-talk.
Yeah.
Your positive self-talk is usually kind of quiet.
Yeah.
Right.
You can do more.
Yeah, but the negative
It's almost like a
self-talk
feeling.
is super loud.
Yeah.
Why is that?
You suck.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah.
You can't breathe.
Yeah. So you need
Yeah.
you need to kind of listen to the whispers, which the whispers are like, man, I wonder if I can do this, right?
Yeah.
And then the whispers are also the people that come into your lives, your life that says, hey, I think you can do this.
Yeah.
So there's been these times in my life where I didn't believe in me necessarily, but I had some people that did.
Yep.
So for everybody listening, if you don't believe in yourself, find somebody else that does.
It's like borrowing ego a little bit. I need someone to tell me.
Yeah, and that can give you the nudge that I think that a lot of people need.
Yeah.
And they're there in your life. You just got to listen for them. You got to listen to the whisper, right?
Yeah, that's good. I like that whisper. That's
Yeah,
good.
there's a few things that just scream at me from this part of the conversation, right? So like here we're sitting and you're like, I have to shut Scar up, that giant pussycat's just like trying to tear me down every step of the way.
Yep.
And then at the same time, you have to discern the positive whispers, which are even quieter.
Yeah.
So like that implies a task. The task is you have to listen to yourself enough to be able to begin realizing who's Scar, who's this negative voice, and who's the positive voice demanding more of myself.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the third piece that fuels that, right? And I think that there's a light and a shadow to it as well, is those who will invest in you because they see the fight for the better in you and they see what your potential, what you can become. So they pay that forward in an encouragement. Yeah. And like to me, that's just an encouragement. If I see someone struggling and I think I can offer a word of encouragement, I need to make sure to do that because I don't know how dark their fight is and who's winning their mind. But also I need to be able to receive that. And at the same line, talking about discernment, right? Like with yourself, listening to yourself, the introspection, you'll also have voices that are not positive in your life. And that's another filtration process you have to learn to evaluate. Is this someone that believes in me, in the ideal I'm pursuing, or is it someone who wants to see me fail or doesn't like me? And what do I do with those four voices?
Yeah.
You know?
We had I would say the people that are fighting are qualified for the advice of the voices, the encouragement around them. Because if you're not challenging yourself at all, and you go, yeah, no one really believes in me. Well, it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like you're not even in the fight, so people don't even know to say something.
Yeah.
Like I can't cheer for someone who didn't step in the ring.
Yeah.
Even if he's getting beat to hell, if I'm a friend, I'd be like, I'm just glad you're doing it, man.
Yeah.
Like I see you're failing and this is hard, but I do believe in you, but I didn't even know you're ready to fight.
Yeah.
So you invite that into your life when you do challenging things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you have you have Scar, you have your positive whispering voice, you have people who are encouraging you along the way, giving you just enough to hope to say, why not? Maybe I can, right? Maybe I can. So I'm going to try. And that just continues the roller coaster of self-doubt and triumph.
There's a lot of days in between achievement, right?
Yeah.
Like from the time that I enlisted in the military to the time I landed my dream job as a Ranger platoon leader in the 75th Ranger Regiment, that took 10 years, man. That's 10 years of going through. There's a lot of days.
It's a lot of work.
There's a lot of days, man, stacked up. And you're going to go through, some days you're going to feel good, like you're caffeinated, you're motivated, you're slept in. You're like, yeah, I can conquer the world. And the next day you're like, dude, I feel like shit, there's no way I can do this, right?
Yep.
So that goes on and on and on. So staying the course becomes difficult. And for me, I got this new dream at the time. That's to get into special operations and kind of prove myself once again to myself. Serve in a unit that I can give to, serve to or serve with, and just provide value to and live a fulfilling, just be of service to people. That was really driving me at the time. I wanted to make my time in service matter and challenge myself at the same time. So, yeah, that evolution goes on for quite some time, and I ended up applying for the 75th Ranger Regiment. They approved my packet. Again, I'm like, holy shit, I can't believe they said yes. Yeah. Right? I get there, and I go through the Ranger Assessment Selection Board, and I perform well. They select me within 15 minutes, which was pretty quick for the time. A lot of guys were in there for maybe an hour or more, and I got blessed, and they selected me, and I come out, and it was like one of the biggest highs I've ever had in my life, man. It was like so emotional. I went to my room, I texted my wife. My pupils were just like super tiny. I was like, oh my God. Because, you put this thing on a pedestal for, 10, however long, man. You get there, and then that lasts a moment in time, right?
Yeah.
And then that you kind of crash, and now you're thinking, okay, I got a long way to go till I can become. Now that I'm qualified to go to the Ranger Regiment, now the next step is I want to get a Ranger platoon. That doesn't happen overnight. You got to go basically do a staff position and work your way down, and even then it's competitive. If there's a guy that's at the Ranger Regiment or the Ranger officer that's better than you or senior you, they're going to put him down first.
So you're pushing on the throttle.
Yeah.
You can't coast at this point if you're going to make it.
Yeah.
So if you're tired at all, it's like, too bad. You got to push even harder.
Yeah. So, I'm throughout this period of time, I'm just, I'm hoping for the dream job. I want to lead Rangers in combat. Right. And as we're moving through time, the wars overseas, and the war in Afghanistan is getting smaller and smaller. There's less U.S. soldiers there, and less Rangers are getting a chance to go and serve in combat overseas. And so there's a lot of time in this chapter where I was a Ranger where it looked like I was going to get pushed down to becoming a Ranger platoon leader, and it wasn't going to happen. And then I did, and then same thing with the deployments. I did multiple deployments with the Rangers, but I wanted to be the Strike Force 1 platoon leader. I wanted to go overseas and do some raids and live that dream, right? And again, the chances are getting smaller and smaller because there's less people overseas. And so, anyways, through that all, my platoon, the Bad Mothers platoon, ended up getting selected to be the Strike Force 1 platoon overseas.
Wow. Nice.
And out of the entire Ranger regiment, there was 2 platoons. Out of all the battalions, all 3 battalions and the headquarters, so 4 if you want to call 4, there's 2 platoons that go overseas to do high-value target raids.
Yep.
And little Jeramiah Solven from Trinity Center, California, it becomes the Strike Force 1 platoon leader to go lead those missions. So there's me and 1 other Ranger officer in the entire Army that have been granted this responsibility and get to serve with the other amazing heroes that get to go do this mission too.
What do you think made you different than all these other highly qualified people that were going for it?
It was a lot like winning the lottery, man. It felt like luck. It felt like opportunity. It felt like, I think, when I look at it, that I should not have been in that position through all the adversity, through all just the way that things lined up, just the odds were it seemed like they were against me the whole time. And I know a lot of my guys probably felt the same way that ended up going overseas too. They felt like they were never going to go live that cool guy deployment dream. Right. And, if I had to pick something that, it's hard to say, man. I mean, I'll just tell you what I actually think. So when I decided to switch from enlisted to infantry officer, I prayed every single night. I prayed for living having a successful career, helping others along the way, fulfilling my purpose. And I asked God, if you make me successful in this field and as an infantry officer, I promise I'll pay it forward tenfold every single day of my life. And I visualized and prayed every single night after I made the decision to switch. And that prayer came with conviction. And so every single day, I made my goal to focus on paying it forward in advance. And I feel like, and I was imperfect, man. I made a lot of mistakes. I had all types of leadership failures, but I had good intention. And if you were to ask me, like, if there's any reason why you landed that job against all odds, I would say it's because I was fulfilling that purpose. At least that's the belief that I have. And then, I think that's what it was. And I stayed the course. A lot of my peers, they wanted to go do real cool guy shit overseas too. Like all the infantry officers I graduated with in college, they were all like, I want to be in, Green Beret. I want to be a Ranger, all this stuff. Yeah. But then when discouragement set in later on, like, hey, it doesn't look like you're going to go, maybe they got to the Ranger Regiment. Okay. They made it that far. But then for some reason, it didn't look like they were going to be assigned to a Ranger platoon, in the exact time that they wanted to.
They back off a bit.
They back off. And they say, you know what? I'm going to go over here. The grass is greener over here. I'm going to go to this other I'm going to go to the FBI. I'm going to go actually switch over, and I'm going to go SF now. And so they go off course. And so I think a lot of it was consistency and persistence, even when it didn't look like I was going to get that job at all. And a little bit of, just having gratitude and trying to fulfill that purpose every single day. And here's the weird shit, man. And I don't know if I've ever said this on a podcast, is I went and did this high value target raid overseas. Okay. I was a ranger. We were over there with the Bad Mothers, and I come off this mission. We had some guys that got killed on the objective, not U.S. We had some, it was a capture or kill mission. We had some enemy combatants that were killed, and we got in, we got out, we had mission success. But I got home, and I laid down. I say home, it was my barracks room over in overseas, right? And I'm completely exhausted. Adrenaline dump just happens. I lay down. It's like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, maybe 10 o'clock in the morning, because it was a night raid. And I lay on my bed, and I close my eyes, and I had this like, holy shit. All that visualization that you've done prior, all those prayers, like, so leading up into this, when I would do those prayers and that visualization, there was this one image that I saw every single night. It was fighting in combat in this valley with, these leaders around me, and there was just chaos, and I'm not going to go into the specifics, but certain people were doing certain things. And there was a little bit of fear there. There was me trying to rise to the occasion. There was my guys getting hurt. And this was just an image that I didn't create. It was just in my head. And then I lay down years later, and I come off this mission, I close my eyes, and I'm like, holy shit, I just lived the exact fucking image that I've had in my head for like 7 years. And so you guys asked, what do you think caused you to get that position? I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know if it was divine intervention or what, but it was just a crazy feeling. It feels weird to even say it on here.
Yeah. You didn't close the door on yourself either, though. I mean, you talk about these guys that backed off. Like, it sounds like, to me, you were surprised over and over again.
Oh, the whole journey.
They said yes. And you could have easily said, they're not going to say yes, so I'm going to back off.
Yeah.
But you were willing to go all the way to the end
Yeah.
and let them make the decision.
Yeah.
So that you're walking in this like, hey, I'm praying, as you say, like, I'm praying as if this is going to happen until someone says no, I guess, really.
Yeah.
And then when it happens, you're like, great. Like,
yeah, I'm gonna run the play till I get pulled off the line, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, and if I can get it, great. I kind of detached from the outcome too, so to speak. Like, I wanted it, but I also felt so discouraged that I had to let up on it, because if I was, that was the only way I could reach fulfillment. So I detached a little bit from the outcome. I said, you know what? I probably won't even get this assignment that I'm chasing. Let me just focus on doing a good job and trying to fulfill my purpose.
Yeah.
I just love that, because that right there, it's you adjusted your satisfaction level to being entitled to the work, not to the fruit, not to the reward, right? And you use some words that really stood out to me, like you just were grateful to be there, giving your best in the pursuit of that goal, of that ideal, of the opportunity, and ultimately it got you into the position that was just good enough to give you the chance to maybe get to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then each day was just that chance to maybe show up and get to do it. But that's all it was. It's just, you didn't earn anything except the opportunity to try again, to do harder, and to be grateful. And the thing that stood out to me the most, I'm so grateful you shared everything you just did, because it was awesome and incredibly, I think, encouraging, right? And it was raw and genuine. But you talked about, you made it your goal, because your promise to yourself and your promise to God, right, was, if I can get to this place, I'll pay it forward for 10 years in advance. Instead of waiting to get there to start paying forward, you made it your goal. I'm going to pay forward everything I can in advance every day, today.
Yeah.
Talk about good stewardship.
Yep.
And talk about taking ownership and selling yourself out, like, in a good way. Like, I'm sold out to this ideal. Is, I want this. I'm promising this. I'm going to do it with what I have now.
Yeah. I mean, I believe in proving what you say you're going to do with action, right? So why would I talk about something I'm not actually going to do? And actually, that gets me in a little bit of trouble sometimes, to be honest. I actually ran 103 miles because of that problem. I was sitting on my couch on a Sunday, and I'm looking at this certain person's Instagram, and I'm like, man, this guy runs ultra endurance races. He looks so cool. And I was like, man, I really want to do that one day. And then I start, because the desire's there, I have this rule with myself. Well, prove it.
You said while sitting on the couch, you had that desire, right?
Yeah,
it's funny how those desires sit on the couch.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, this looks cool. So I had that desire. Yeah. Yeah. You're all nice and comfortable. Yeah. This is a great idea until you get into it. Right? It's like, oh my God. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, whenever I want something, I want to back it up with, like I said, the action, right? Yeah. So I want this job. Let me prove it to you in advance, right? That type of thing. So I take some action and I go on social media, I go on Google and I look up races. And I'm like, this guy's doing, the guy that I was looking at was running basically a marathon a day. He had done some 100-milers. And I was like, that looks so cool. I got to try some stuff like that.
Does he happen to shoot a bow?
I can't say.
Okay.
He's like, he may or may not follow me on Instagram too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Good.
So I'm looking at his stuff and I'm like, I think I want to do something like this. So I go on Google and I look and I find out, I look at the race schedule. I'm like, is there anything around me anytime soon? And there's a race, and it's the following Saturday. And so I'm like, shit. Again, I don't want to do this. Like, this makes me nervous. Okay, I'm clicking it. I'm signing up.
Yeah.
So I click, I sign up, and then I'm immediately like, fuck, what I get myself into?
Yeah.
So I call a friend of mine who I knew had ran a few 100-milers before, and I'm like, hey, just reality check, man. Like, am I going to die out here on this thing? And not only is it a 100-mile race, but it's in Silver Hills, Colorado.
Oh, good.
So elevation.
So it's at 11,000 feet average.
Oh, no.
We go from 9 to 13,000 feet the whole race, and it's a 36-hour race. First one I've ever, even thought of doing, and I'm signing up for it, right? Ignorance is bliss, I guess. But so I call my buddy. I'm like, is this suicide?
Yeah.
And I'm like, he's like, what's your running mileage been at? What's the longest run you've done? We're going back and forth, and he's like, here's my honest opinion. He's like, I think you can do it, but it's not gonna be pretty.
Yeah.
And he's like, I think you'll get through it just based off of mental toughness.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, that's all I need. And so I committed to it, and I drove. It was Friday. My wife had business, so I took a fucking Uber. Almost 2-hour drive from my house with a grocery bag full of shit, like an extra pair of shoes and some snacks. Like, I had no idea what to pack or bring, right? And I had figured out, I'd done a little bit of research prior to the event, not super detailed stuff, but I asked my buddy, like, if you had any piece of advice, what's the piece of advice you give me to complete this thing?
Great question.
And he said, hey, just prepare for mile 70. And I said, why 70? He said, well, because if you think about mile 70, he's like, you're going to pace yourself a little differently, you're going to eat differently, and you're going to be past the hardest part. And I said, okay. So I built my whole plan around mile 70. How I had my bag set up on the course was a complete disaster. And I ended up driving from my house to that Uber. I showed up Friday night. I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning. 4 o'clock was start time. And we start taking off. And, I mean, it was a nasty 100-miler. Not pretty. And they almost had to pull me off of the mountain at like mile 20.
Oh, no.
So it was gross. I can go into detail, but
did you finish it? So
I did finish it. Yeah.
So yeah, let's have some fun. Like, we're like water, man. We're gonna go where it makes sense to go, right, with the flow. So you sign up a week prior.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can do it based off mental toughness, and you have the basic conditioning to say you probably won't die.
Yeah.
So you go. You're preparing for mile 70. It doesn't sound like you have race support.
Yeah.
You just have a bag.
No team. Which everybody has a team when you're out there, and nope.
So solo Ubered up.
I didn't even know what a drop bag was. Somebody said, "Hey, dude, where's your drop bag?" I said, "What the fuck is that?"
Yeah, it's like, you're gonna die.
I got a grocery bag full of snacks. They're like, "Yeah, put it into smaller bags and blah blah blah."
You're gonna die.
Yeah.
So mile 20. Why did they almost pull you off, and then what happened? Because did you finish it? I'm assuming you did, based on how you talk.
Yeah. So I did finish the race.
So what happened?
So I'm wearing a pair of like $50 pair of Under Armour shoes.
Yeah.
Okay. I brought a second pair of shoes there to transition into after the first night iteration. So I show up and we start racing. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, and I have no idea what I'm doing. So I run next to some more experienced guys, and I basically start learning how to complete a 100-mile race while I'm running the 100-mile race. I'm asking them questions like, hey, what do you guys eat when you do these things? Right? Like, how often do you eat? Those type of things.
And they're like, dude, we're running.
Yeah. And we're like already going uphill. And so and these guys are experienced.
Yep.
Come to find out, one of the guys I was running with is the only person in history that's ran 100 consecutive 100-milers.
Ooh, nice.
Okay, different.
You got lucky picking him.
Wait, like,
yeah.
I didn't know this.
Consecutive by what?
Weekends.
Okay,
so he
okay,
won every weekend for 100 weeks. He ran 100 miles. Only person in history that's ever done that. And I didn't know anything about this guy, but I'm running next to him, and I'm like trotting next to him for the first 10 miles. That's a problem.
Yeah, that's going to kill you.
Yeah, I'm running too fast, right? Like I should not be. So I'm like asking him questions, and he's telling me how he eats. I'm like, what about sleep? Do you guys not sleep out here? Is that cool? Or like, how do you do it? And I never forget, he said, you'll be surprised. 5 minutes can buy you an hour. And what he was saying is that if you need to take a knee for 5 minutes, do it, because you're going to get a whole hour of energy after that. So I would use that technique throughout the night and stuff. But anyways, I'm running with these guys, and I blow up because I'm running way too fast. We're going uphill. And there's some hypoxia in there probably as well because I'm running at altitude.
Little hubris.
Yeah, exactly. So I get nauseous within the first 5 miles. I don't have the nutrition stuff on me like I need. I know this all sounds like this guy's an idiot, right? Like that's what people are thinking. But I just made some simple mistakes, acted a little quick, and I'm learning as I go, and I'm adjusting on the fly. Well, I get to mile like 15, it's still straight up. This is full, 10, 20 miles uphill the whole time. And I'm at mile 20, and my stomach's turned upside down. I have the worst headache I've ever had in my life. I'm sick. I'm like dizzy. I'm half sunburnt. And I'm like, there's no fucking way I can finish 100 miles, man.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, just get to the aid station, recoup, and then decide whether or not you're gonna pull forward. And so I get out there, and I hit that aid station, and I kind of like a wounded animal. I basically like hide out, right? I'm like, I go to find a shady spot. I take off my shoes, and I just like collapse. And I'm like, dude, I'm so fucked up. They're gonna have to pull me off of this mountain with a litter, is what I'm thinking, or a helicopter or something. I can't get off. So
Scar's screaming.
Yeah. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm like in pain. And I'm like, bro, why are you doing this? Or you can't complete this thing. You still have 80 more miles to go. And I'm laying there, and one of the things I did before the race was I got a clear why, right? I'm like, why are you doing this? Why are you going to do a 100-mile race? And I said that I have these goals that I'm working on, okay? I have business goals, family goals, real estate goals. And I'm like, if you're really, truly committed to these things long-term, prove it by sacrificing and committing to this 100-mile race. So that was my why, proving that I'm invested in my goals, real world, with action, right? And so I'm laying there, and my why's coming back up, and I'm like, if you're serious about these goals, you don't quit, right? You do not quit. That's what you're proving right now. And if there's ever a moment like God spoke to me, it was in this moment where at that 20-mile marker, I got hit with this energy, and it was like game time. I'm like, I do not fucking quit. They're not pulling me off this mountain. And those voices started again. So Scar on one side, Simba on the other. And I was over there as Simba telling Scar, like, you're going to get up and we're going to move forward, or I'm going to drag your corpse for the next 80 fucking miles.
It's not like you're close.
Bro, it was one of the most darkest experiences I've ever I've had in my life, where I'm just in this, and for the next 20 miles, okay, I'm in this, it was almost like this cloud was around me.
Yeah.
And it was dark. I'm by myself. Nobody's around. It's just one foot in the front and the other. And I'm climbing up this hill. I get to the top of the 40-mile marker. And when I get to the top of this thing, it's like the sky's clear. And I have this new energy. And I'm like, holy shit, dude, I think I can finish this thing. And so, like, Scar basically goes away. There's Simba. And I start trotting again, and I keep pushing, and I push into the night. The night's another dark time. It's basically, I'm in ranger panties and a fucking T-shirt. Okay.
Up in the high elevation.
It's
what time of year is it?
It was like August time frame. So
okay, so it still gets chilly enough.
It got down to 30 degrees.
Yeah.
It was 30 degrees up there. And not only that, but when you've been moving for 24 hours, your body temperature drops. Okay, and so I'm in ranger panties and a T-shirt, and just trekking through the night like ranger school, sleepy, tired.
And real quick, just so everyone, ranger panties are essentially like a man thong.
Yeah,
it is like the bare minimum. You think Speedo?
They're loose boxer shorts, pretty much. Yeah,
very short. There's a lot of pride in them.
Yeah,
they're awesome.
There is, because you earn that. You go to ranger school, and you earn the right to wear ranger panties later on, right? So
I just want to make sure everyone had that. So they had the visualization of you dying on the side of the mountain, trucking through the dark in shorty shorts.
Yeah, dude. So I push, and I go through the night, and that's a nasty fight. It's just me constantly fighting, falling asleep, waking back up, one foot in front of the other, like sleeping while you're walking, and like hiking and shit. So I push, and then the sun rises. Actually, the sun rises, and one of the guys tells me, hey, you're good, bro. Like, there's no more gates left on this race, meaning you just have to finish the course. There's no checkpoints that you have to meet. You have to be on time for. Okay. So I'm like, since that's a sense of relief, I can go at my own pace. I just got to finish this thing according to what I think makes sense. I don't have to race to the next checkpoint.
To not get disqualified, essentially.
Exactly.
So that's how that was their. Because I know that for a lot of these races, there's qualifying events. Yeah. So for this one, you had to meet the checkpoints or they pull you.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're behind a certain time, they pull you from the course.
Gotcha. Just as a liability thing.
Yeah. And they can't spend the weekend cleaning up people that are super, super far behind.
Yeah.
Right? It's a big nightmare. So they draw the line. Okay. And but the guy comes in and I'm at one of the aid stations and he's like, hey, bro, you're good. You just have to finish the rest of the, it was basically another 12 hours or something like that. And I'm like, oh, sense of relief. I'll just kind of walk and jog and then walk and jog. And so I'm closing in on mile, I think it was 70, if I remember right. Like I'm in the 60s, right? Mm-hmm. And then going towards where my buddy told me, to be prepared for mile 70. And I get to the next checkpoint and I run into that guy that I told you about, the one that completed, it was the game of hundos, 100 consecutive 100 miles. And I bump into him. He's like, bro, why are you going so slow? And I was like, we're good. This guy told me there's no checkpoints. He's like, no, you have to be on time for all the checkpoints. We have like 20 minutes before we got to get to the next one. And I'm like, fuck. And we were behind.
How did he find you? Was that just circumstantially?
Yeah, it was just circumstances. Yeah. Like I was
Fortune.
going, he had, I think he like caught a power nap and he was on like number 40 of these. So he's pretty experienced in just timing himself.
Yeah.
And so he had caught a power nap and then he caught up with me. And when he saw me, I'm like casually walking down the road, like no care in the world, right? He's like, bro, we're behind schedule. And I'm like, fuck. So we run.
No more like.
No, we run from miles, 60 towards 70. I don't know, we're somewhere in there, but it was basically almost a full hour of straight sprinting when you're already past mile 60. And it was the most painful leg, one of the most painful legs of the journey. And so I get to the next checkpoint and there's 1 minute to spare. And I cross the line, and they're like, you don't have time. You're not allowed to stay here past the cutoff time. So you're going to grab a drink. You have to leave your drop bag, your shoes, and you have to get the fuck out of here.
And they'll carry it to the next checkpoint.
Nope.
The bag? It's just gone.
It's gone.
Okay.
It's gone.
Have fun.
So my change of shoes, I had a new set that I was going to wear, new socks and all that shit. I didn't get access to any of it because I was just.
Why did they make you drop it out of curiosity?
So it's basically a resupply bag that they put at mile 70 for everybody, and they stage it there because you're going to go through a night evolution.
Yep.
And that's the place that makes the most logical sense for you to, get new shoes and everything. So, anyways, I didn't get to put mine on, and so I'm wearing the same $50 pair of Under Armour shoes, same socks. End up finishing the last leg of the race, and the last 5 miles, I came out there to push myself. Came out there to see what I had, to prove myself to myself, show that I'm committed to my goals. Mm-hmm. And the last 5 miles, people were basically kind of, being complacent, and they're like, hey, we're good. We're on time. We're on track. And everybody's kind of walking casually towards the finish line. And I catch myself kind of conforming to that, and I'm like walking with them, and I'm going on, and it's maybe, I got 4 or 3 more miles left. And I realized, bro, you're taking it easy right now. You're acting like you've arrived already. And I'm like, fuck that. And I came out here to push myself. And so I start sprinting. And that last 3 miles, I was basically in tears, like off and on, running 400 meters, stopping, walking, running 400 meters, stopping, walking, like trying to fight back, the emotion. And I crossed the finish line with that pace, and my wife is there, and I didn't realize I was going to tear up as I was coming through, but I did. I teared up. I was holding it back because she was filming me, trying to look tough.
I'm good.
Oh, man, dude. I hugged her and got in the car, and within fucking, 3 minutes, I fell asleep in the passenger seat just drooling on myself. Yeah.
Did you have any... Well, that's awesome. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh my gosh, that's an incredible story.
Yeah, it was tough, but I guess somebody's listening right now. Like we're sharing my story. I'm nothing special, and what I would just maybe give to the audience is that one of the things that got me through that 100-miler was connecting while I was doing what I was doing with my action with future stuff that I was working on. Mm-hmm. Like I'm doing this for this. That helped me out a ton. Another thing I did was, I got ahead of the inner dialogue in advance. Okay, so that week before the event,
anticipated it.
Yeah, so I went and I called what I call my power people.
Yep.
So I got about 5 people in my life, maybe a little more, where I know, like your parents. You probably have a parent who's like this. You call them, and it doesn't matter what's going on in life, they're like super encouraging. Oh, it's okay, sweetie, right? Like they're always, no matter what, or friends that are like this, they always talk good things to you. So I automatically called those people before the event, and I said, hey man, how you doing? I just want to catch up. Almost like a farewell, right? Hey man, how you doing? They're like, why are you calling? I'm just like, I just want to see what you're up to. Just shot the shit, and then I'm like, oh yeah, and I signed up for 100 miles, and they're like, oh, hey.
When? Today?
Yeah. When is it? It's in 3 days.
Yeah.
Well, hey man, I want you to know that you're gonna, you're tough as nails, blah blah blah. All this, they're saying positive things into my ears, and so when I was out there, I was thinking about all of them and not like the scar that had been on my shoulder at those weak moments. Those voices kind of came back and prepared me internally for the route forward.
Yeah, you're kind of creating a bank of encouragement that you're gonna have to rob from.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you need that all the time, man. Like say power people. You want power people in your life. Be selective, and know that they serve that purpose in your life, right? To fuel that inner dialogue.
So good.
There's a legion of voices that talk about when you have that goal that you want, that you start pursuing, and you really hit a breaking point for yourself, a barrier.
Yeah.
The question of why am I doing this comes up, and if you're not prepared for that question, that's
fucked.
That's the make or break.
Yep.
And it's like, for some reason, all these challenges, I completely relate. It's when I'm fed, fat, and happy, in a comfy spot, and like, oh, I should do this. Oh, I don't want to. Oh, I have to. And then it's terrible. And at some point, and here's how I know if it's not hard enough. If you don't get that, why am I doing this point?
Yep.
You're like, okay, I'm not pushing enough.
Yeah, like those fucking burpees today, man.
Yeah.
I was like, why am I doing it?
But that's like one of those great like signals that you're on the right track, right? You're on the path. It's like, I'll go a little bit further. So like a lot of what you're talking about, they're life navigational tools.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, why am I doing these suffering Saturdays? Because it will help keep me on the right path. I will know. Anyone who can know if they don't start screaming at themselves to lie to themselves that I don't want to do this hard thing. And if I just condition myself repeatedly over time, invest in myself to trust that I'll say yes to doing those hard things, that'll create some momentum. And if I can think in advance why and answer that question, then when I don't have anything else, I can at least say I am doing this because it's proving to me whatever your why is.
Yeah. Yes. And this is where people get jacked up. A lot of people have this false illusion that your why should almost be like planted. Like your purpose should be given to you. Like it should be this gift that comes to you in this enlightened moment, right? And it's not. It's the whisper. Why am I doing this? The whisper plus choice. It's the decision. You're gonna command it. Sorry, I don't know if you guys allow me to curse. I've been doing it the whole time.
You're good.
I'm sorry for that. But I'm getting amped. So
amped is good. Let's go with amped.
Yeah. So when you decide on what your purpose is or what your why is, it's 50% whisper or calling. Okay, what your gut is kind of telling you to do, and then 50% choice.
Yeah.
This is what I'm going to choose as my purpose. This is what I'm going to choose. And then when you make that decision that, okay, this is why I'm doing it, then what happens as you're pursuing the goal, you reinforce the why. And then you basically build it over and over, and it compounds, it comes stronger and stronger and stronger, right? Until it's conviction. This is why I'm doing it. This is why I'm here.
That's good. Yeah, you're kind of creating a rut in your mind.
Yeah.
That now this is how we react when we make whys in our head.
Yeah.
And even more so, that's all your internal stuff, right? So it's like, okay, I'm conditioning myself to do the hard things. I'm giving myself a reason to rely on when I'm depleted, like to help me answer that why. But then I still have to prove it. That's the action piece, right? I know it. Now I have to do it, or I'm going to have this huge existential problem I have to deal with, right? So I'm going to do it. And then so those are all like just for navigation, right? It's kind of like trying to get from point A to point B. You're just navigating your own mind in the pursuit of these goals. And then I love how you talk about your power 5 or your power circle.
Power people,
Yeah, your power. Thank you, power people.
Power people and dream team.
Power people and dream team.
You want power people, which are like if you're like an MMA fighter or something, these are the people that are in your corner.
Yeah.
Right. And then you need to have a dream team too. Dream team is your advisors, your counselors, these people in the kind of the periphery that you seek advice from and wisdom from. So maybe it's a financial advisor in some people's life, or maybe it's somebody that's in real estate, or somebody that's you build these people, this dream team, and then you can leverage them as you're trying to go through life. Too many times like it's a poor mentality to try to do things alone. It really is. I grew up like that, thinking that I should do everything myself. I'm going to mow my lawn myself. I'm going to do all this stuff myself. But if you really want to succeed, you want that dream team and you want those power people, because you're going to need it if you're really truly trying to push yourself to the next level. You're going to need that stuff. It's going to be a requirement.
Because you're not going to have enough.
No.
You're not going to have
You need
enough.
every advantage you can get to get through that stuff.
Yeah.
Every advantage you can get. Just like when you're overseas, you're doing missions or raids, like the stuff that gets you through that is not your ego and your like the goal that you're after. It's why you're doing it. It's for the people to your left and right, your wife back home, your friends to your left and right. You need those people to you perform for them.
Yep. Yeah, because otherwise you're going through your whole life and you're just hoping the storm will never come. Yeah. And you realize that's not life. No. There will be difficulty. And at that point, do you have people in your corner to weather that storm?
Exactly.
We talk a lot about, as parents, we want to prepare our children for the road, not make the road easy for them. It's kind of like, hey, when the storm hits, when I'm at the end of myself, have I done a good enough job? Have I been humble enough to actually build the support systems around me to be prepared? Because like what you're talking about, is like it takes humility and vulnerability to have that power circle, to have that dream team. It's like, I don't have enough to do this. Will you help cover my gaps, man? Will you help me get there?
Courage. It takes courage, man.
And it's beautiful, though. It's good. There's a quote we're really fond of on this show. It comes up every few episodes, but I think it's an old African proverb. You go further together, right?
Fast alone, further together. Yeah.
I know. I was like, oh, yeah, we say it all the time, and I completely botched it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's it.
Thank you for the correction. But and it just ties directly into that.
Yeah, that's a lot of what we talk about on the podcast. It's like, we know, like, when the difficulty comes, and sometimes it's self-inflicted. It's almost like you're creating your own. You're making a test tube for yourself. Yeah, it's like, hey, I just want to get really familiar.
Ecosystem.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that what you mean? You're talking about like building an ecosystem around you to perform through the thing.
That's that, but also when you're doing these suffering Saturdays, it's like, this isn't something I have to do, but I'm creating it because I know there'll be a feeling that's like this in the future that I didn't choose. And when it does happen, I'm very familiar with what it feels like to be uncomfortable and afraid.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would also say you got to be clear about who you're trying to be and what you're trying to do in life, right?
Yeah,
like my suffering Saturdays are always tied to my goals. Like, I want to be in better shape, so I'm going to do physical things. I want to move my business forward, so I do business things on Saturdays sometimes. So, for me, when I made the commitment for suffering Saturdays, let's just say, I asked myself, what is this going to do for me? And does this help me get to where I want to go, right? And I said, okay, if I'm designing this thing to help me get to my goals and I'm committed to it and I do it every single weekend, it's going to make me better. It's going to make me get there. So it just becomes that logical step, right? Yeah. It's like, it's a clear path. It's tied to the vision. It's tied to the vision for myself.
I want to go back because I think we left something on the table because you got excited about ecosystems.
Yeah.
So that sounds like maybe a mental framework or tool that you use. Can we talk about that? What is that?
Yeah. So an ecosystem is essentially, like, I think a lot of people know, but it's where life is created and is formed, right? So we all live in an ecosystem, but an ecosystem is also a strategy for improvement. Okay. The Amazon rainforest has an ecosystem, right? Pretty harsh environment, but so does maybe the Sahara Desert, right? Two ecosystems with different life forms there. So in what happens in the Amazon rainforest, you have tons of humidity, tons of heat, and there's tons of vegetation. Yep. And in the harsher terrain, there isn't much life form. So human beings will become a product of their ecosystem. So I'm always thinking about how can I improve my ecosystem to produce a better plant or make myself better. Like when I went to the Ranger Regiment, that was a great ecosystem. Those guys demanded a lot, man. And I like to use the 12-mile ruck march as an example of how that ecosystem transformed me. When I came into the military as a private, I was doing 12 miles with 35 or 45-pound ruck in around 4 hours. Okay. And it was brutal for me. And as my career changed, I started seeing other people performing at a higher level. And when I got into the Rangers, I saw guys doing basically sub 2 hour 12 milers. And so I started studying them, and I'm starting to mentally raise the bar of what I think I can do. I studied their habits. And the next thing you know, I get, after I left the Ranger Regiment, I did my fastest ruck march time in 1 hour and 57 minutes. And I came in at 4 hours. The effort was the same every single time, but the only thing that changed among those chapters was my ecosystem. I was rising to the level of the people around me when I first came in, and then as I went through my career, I started adapting and adjusting to the people that were doing better than me, and then I started competing with them, and then I do the better time. I didn't even know sub 2 hours was possible. When I was a private, you know. But then here I am, I get into soft, and I see guys doing it, and I'm like, and then I rise up. So your ecosystem will cause you to perform, and it'll cause you to rise up.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant because you're using peer pressure to your advantage.
Yes. Yeah, like my cage fight that I had in January, right? Guys were talking to me about the cage fight that I did, and they were like talking to me, you asked me questions about worries, concern, and one of the things I told them was like, they're like, what was the fear that you had when you went in there? And I was like, I didn't want to let people down, man.
Yeah.
That's what drove, like, my preparation for the fight. I didn't want to let the people around me down. So every day I'm showing up and giving my best because I know when I go in there and it's me versus him, and my friends, my family, my ecosystem sees me lose, I'm going to be disappointed. So let me rise to the expectation and perform for them. That pressure is good, man.
Yeah, it is.
Very good.
I want to so now we've talked about, listening to your inner voices so that you can actually start to tell, oh, here's something hard I need to do to get better. Oh, I need a very specific, intentional group of people that I can go to who believe in me and who will invest in me positively, right? Just encouragement. So you're doing that. And then 3, you're not just engineering like, okay, I'm going to do this thing because it helped me achieve this goal, but how can I create my entire ecosystem, the world in which I live, so that it, even on a bad day, will force me to become better.
Yep.
And that's kind of fun. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So as I started improving physically and got into some endurance stuff, on my lazy day, to your point, so I'm having a lazy day and I'm like, I don't want to train, right?
Yep.
And I'm thinking, fuck, man, just take the day off, blah, blah, blah. So what do? I'm like, how do I, maybe I can call a friend and see what they're doing. So I call one of my friends who's just an absolute animal. Again, the ecosystem. I say, hey, man, what are you up to today? And it was a Saturday, right? This was way before Suffering Saturday started. And I called him, and he's like, oh, I got a half marathon that I'm running today, or something like that. And I was thinking about sitting on the couch. And when he says he's doing a half marathon, then I'm like, crap, now I got to rise to the level of my peer. I get up, I put on my shoes, and I go perform.
Yep.
Right? So that's the power of the ecosystem. It helps push you up and get you to do the thing, you know?
It's really hard to climb out of sludge, right? Like if everything, right? Like if you're surrounded, and this is where being intentional about what you're in, it's like you're going to start wearing part of what you allow around yourself. So if you're in an environment where people are lackadaisical, they're accepting the bare minimum, they're doing that type of lifestyle, you're not impervious to that. It's going to, like, because this is the shadow of the ecosystem, right? Like if you're not intentional in creating what is influencing you, like, yeah, you may be able to go spend a couple hours in a situation and intentionally guard yourself from being degraded. But if you're living in that situation, then over time, it will slow you down. Yeah. Even if it's marginal, or even just starts seeping into your mind, and Scar's voice starts to get louder, and you're doing so much more than what's around you, you're demanded to do less, and it becomes that weight. So that's like the counterbalance. What you have to, like, I love the analogy of the ecosystem. It's such a great way to frame it, because you have to create the stimulus around you. You have to engineer it so that it forces more, because over the course of time, what you'll find is your laziest day is better than what your best day was.
Yeah, and being around those people, that ecosystem, it causes you to make these 1% improvements across time that compounds, and you just get better and better and better. The Chicago Bulls are a great example, right? If you're playing for a college team and then you go to the Bulls, what happens? You're gonna get better. That team, especially in the 90s, right? Like we're going to talk Michael Jordan, Chicago Bulls, right? You show up to that team, Michael Jordan's going to demand a lot of you, and everybody there, they're going to be pulling their weight. They're going to want you to rise up. So there's two sides to performance. Okay, there's there's your ecosystem that is going to demand, that you need to design to demand more of you. But then the next level is, how do I become a Michael Jordan? How do I be the driving factor in my ecosystem? Right? How do I increase the average of the people around me? That's the next level.
I just read it. How do you become uncommon amongst uncommon men? I just saw it termed that way. And I was like, that's a great way to put it. Right? So what chapter are you in now? So you accomplished a bunch of those goals in the military. Then you're out. You went and did the 103-mile race. You proved you have these goals you're doing. You mentioned that for the rest of your life, you will pay forward tenfold what you can to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
You started doing that. You're doing it now. It's clear when you look at Conquer Academy, when you look at your Instagram feed and how you're encouraging and working with people, that you're doing the best it appears that you're doing the best you can with that. But how would you define this chapter, this challenge, this part of your life?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always in a pay it forward chapter, right?
Yeah.
But basically, after that 100-miler I was at a crossroads with my military career. I had to decide, hey man, are you staying in the military or are you getting out?
Mm-hmm.
And I realized what I was chasing all along in the military while I was on that 100-mile race. I was like, I'm chasing significance. I'm like, everything I've done since the time I went to Iraq to become an infantry officer, it's all tied towards making myself feel better about myself. And I realized that on the 100-miler. And I said, okay, so what is going to make me feel good about myself moving forward? And my crossroads was, do I stay on the course that I'm on in the military, go do the next like super secret squirrel assignment, or do I transition and get into entrepreneurship? I had already been coaching people at this point in time, so I had proof of concept of that. So that was my crossroads: double down and go into coaching and teaching people leadership and performance, or stay in the military. And so I asked myself some tough questions. I said, what's the hardest path in front of me? What does my gut say to do? And then I asked myself, what would my mentor tell me to do in this situation? And that checklist told me to get out. I said, the hardest thing that I can do right now is to leave a career where I literally built myself up from this little boy, this little shy man or shy kid, and to a position where I kind of feel decent about myself, right? Let me just give all that up. And let me just jump into this unknown over here.
Yeah. Let me get naked and go into the dark.
Yeah. And so 4 months after that, I was out of the Army. And I started I doubled down on entrepreneurship.
So real quick, just for reference, so we're in August 21, year 2021. When did that decision happen?
That was at the end of 2019.
Okay.
So my last day in the Army was December 31st, 2019. So 2020 was my first year out of the Army.
Yeah.
First full time in my business.
Yeah.
So pandemic strikes, and I'm a business owner there, and that was an interesting time too.
Yeah. You wanted resilience.
Yeah, dude, we brought in a lot of people that year. I say we brought in a lot of the right people that year. We brought in people during a pandemic that chose to invest in themselves and do hard things during a time where everybody else was fucking quitting. Like my clients, they're like one lady, she's a geologist. She came in, she had never ran more than 8 miles in her life. She ran a marathon in a blizzard just shortly after she joined Conquer Academy. Most she's ever ran in her life, 8 miles. She transforms. She's running a marathon in a blizzard. That's crazy. She's a geologist. Okay? She's an absolute animal. Not only that, but she takes a 12-month goal. She collapses it down to 6 weeks. The marathon was one of them. She wanted to buy another property. She was like, yeah, I'll do that in 12 months. She ends up doing that in 6 weeks. I have a friend who's a business owner, does property management. He came in. So I all these people came into Conquer Academy that were tired of the world around them, tired of people hiding in their shell. And they came in and they improved on themselves. Wow. And it's been phenomenal because they renew, and it's just like these guys are warriors, man.
Love it. And what's beautiful, so that's beautiful. And I think that there's something we can highlight for everyone who's listening and us here is like when things hit the fan, you'll engage with the trouble around you in one of two ways. Either A, it's going to be an excuse to accept that things are hard and continue to scoot by, or B, you're going to say no, and you're going to see it as some form of opportunity or as a breaking point to be sick and tired of being sick and tired, and it could become a catalyst for something that may even give you the lens to see opportunity where everyone else sees disaster. And I'm not trying to be overly specific with like two types of people there, but those are two ways that you can engage in those circumstances. And yours, it's like, okay, the hardest thing I can do is get out. Then you start a business. Then the pandemic hits, and everyone's freaking out. And you're finding yourself blessed to have the right people come in and say, no, I'm not going to let my life get ruined by this. I'm going to make something better. We're going to get more intentional.
Who came out of COVID and the pandemic in better shape than they went in?
Very few.
Like 99% of the people. Dude, phenomenal. Not only that, but they all improve like on their professions too. But that's just we focus a lot on fitness as a core component of the coaching, right? Because if you can do that, you can do the other stuff.
Well, I don't know about you, but like COVID to me was such a great filtration center to see like what people were like. Because
absolutely.
Dude, if they start packing on the pounds and stop pursuing goals and got all depressed and isolated, I was like, okay, I see what you're doing.
Yep.
And then those who are like,
we
going.
Yeah, dude. And the same thing that you see in business too.
Yep.
People that didn't have a stomach for it, that was enough for them, to get pushed out and kind of go to the side. And the people that did, those guys are battle proven now,
Yeah. And the reason I'm highlighting is that it's just so encouraging. Like, no matter the circumstances, fight in, right? Going back to the beginning of our conversation, it's like, if it makes you uncomfortable, if it scares you, you're on the right path.
Yeah.
Fight harder, push in.
Absolutely.
So let's see if I got your current chapter, because like it was very clear, right? You were failed athlete, so you wanted to do the Army as you're changing, and then you had these chapters. It's like, okay, well now I'm scared of school. That's the hardest thing. So you go back to school and you become the officer, and then you go on that entire journey, and then here you're like, okay, what's the hardest thing I can do? How would it line up with the wisdom of my mentors, with what my gut's telling me as I, think and talk and pray about it, all these things. You're like, okay, I need to get out and do this business. And you're already fulfilling to the best of your ability in a lifelong pursuit of paying it forward. So here you are now. It's been just over a year, right? Yeah. Year and a half-ish, coming on 2. And you're building your business. You're paying it forward. What demons are you fighting, man? Like, and how does that, because, like you've had a demon every step that you're like, I'm hunting that guy to kill him.
Yeah.
And then you'll find the next one.
Yeah. It's a good question. And I'll answer it. So I love impossible tasks. If the more at this point in my life, I'm chasing the impossible. So for me, that's committing to my company and growing it as big as possible. Mm-hmm. And, honestly, that doesn't even feel like it's impossible at this point. It's we get the results. People are improving. My goal with Conquer Academy is to produce the Rangers of the civilian sector, right? Like, I want to build these leaders that, like this guy came from Conquer Academy. He's tough. He doesn't quit. That he's not afraid to have tough conversations. That he's a problem solver. Mm-hmm. This is the person that you want inside of your formation in the civilian sector in order to lead your teams, right? I want to produce that, and we will, and we already have. It just the world doesn't know it yet, right? And so I'm doing that, and then additionally, it's mixed martial arts for me.
Okay.
So the odds are against me in MMA. I'm older. Guys that start out in the MMA and try to do their, achieve success there usually start pretty young. And for me, it's been a place where I can chase a new personal impossible task. How far can I go? How good can I get? And it does. It scares the shit out of me all the time. Going in the cage with somebody is nerve-wracking. The training camp's nerve-wracking. That in itself gives me what I need to challenge myself and all the components that built me into, I guess, who I am now. Yeah.
Well, I'd ask what your next chapter is, but then you'd already be doing it. So I know that this is the one.
Yeah, I'll be doing it. I'll there's a saying, I think Zig Ziglar said it. He said, go as far as you can see. When you get there, you'll see further.
Yeah.
So for right now, I mean, it's business and fitness, business and MMA.
Yeah.
I'm going to push these things to their limits. And then when I'm at that crossroads, I'll make the decision, hey, what's the tweak here? What's the modification that I can? And I try to do things. I think everybody should do this because I found value in it. And it's to roll your experience over, like to compound it onto the next thing that you're doing. I think a lot of times people go a lot of different directions in life. Like maybe they do something for 20 years and they turn around and go the other direction. I like to kind of roll that experience into one thing. So when I got out of the military, I'm like, okay, I'm starting, I started a business while I was in the military first. And when I started that, I said, how can I take my experience and roll it into this thing? Instead of like starting some widget, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, what do I know? I know performance because I've done some hard shit.
Yeah.
I know leadership because I failed a lot at that before. So let me just bring all this stuff together and then create a business around it where I teach people my lessons learned. Right?
Yeah.
So that rolls, and I'll just keep doing that over and over. Go as far as you can see. I'll get there, and then I'll see further, and I'll make the next thing.
And that's the macro view.
That's a great advice.
Yeah, that's like the macro strategic view of what Suffering Saturday looks like on what do I not want to do today, I'll do it. That's just the big lifestyle view. So dude, that's awesome. I think this has been one heck of a conversation. I want to do a bit of a shameless plug because I see that you're wearing our friend Iron Apparel shirt, right?
Yeah, great company, veteran owned.
Yeah.
A phenomenal person, human being. I only wear stuff that I stand behind, like He's a good dude, man.
Yeah.
That company's great.
So you got to check out Iron Apparel. And a big part of their mission is iron sharpens iron. So sharpen yourself, sharpen others. And that's, part of what we're pursuing too in these conversations on the grit theory is how can we normalize and encourage people to create devastating ecosystems, to use your word, to create the best human beings possible and change society through that.
Yeah.
Right. And this has been a conversation in my mind that's had some fun. Let's cut some iron off of you if you're weak and make you stronger type of thing.
Yeah. I would say, we covered a lot too, man. And it can be probably for somebody that's just starting out on trying to improve themselves. It could be a little bit overwhelming to be like, oh, we're talking about 15 plus years of my life that we've kind of like pulled these lessons from that have helped out. And somebody that's on maybe day one of like, I'm sick and tired of my situation. I want to change. They're probably wondering like, what do I do? There's, I don't want to just jump off into the unknown. They need to build themselves up a little bit. Yeah. And so I would say just start small and just start, right? Like everybody has a different threshold for how much they can stomach in terms of fear and uncertainty. And I think it's so in psychology, there's two types of ways to desensitize yourself to like fear and whatnot. One is basically called immersion, which is like just complete jump in, right? And then the other one is I think it's called progressive overload, where it's like basically like incremental exposure. Yep. So if I'm scared of snakes, right? Immersion is I'm going to fill a room full of snakes and push myself in and figure it out, right? And then there's I'm scared of snakes. Well, let me just stand in the room and have a snake come in and just kind of like look at it and then maybe let it in the room, right? Kind of build yourself up. Yep. So everybody, I think you just need to pick which one's better for you and then just start and figure out where your sweet spot is to do things that are uncomfortable. Or if you don't, you're going to basically, you want to know what the next 5 years of your life looks like? It's exactly what you're doing now.
And what what you just said, what I love about it is you're giving people freedom to, because a lot of people of either camp are like, this is the way. And you're saying, well, no, assess what you are and then do what's right. And you know which one you are. Do you need to just throw yourself in full bare knuckle brawl style? Yeah. Or do you need to set up a plan and just start consistently doing it?
Not what you want to do, but what works.
Yeah. Good. Yeah.
Right? Like, and you need to get the effect. You need to create the result that you're looking for. Too many times in life we say, oh, this works for me. But in reality, you're just, you're justifying going the other direction, right?
Excellent.
Whatever it is, right? So what produces the effect, and just start a little bit and just build yourself up, and you can get used to doing things that you don't want to do across time. Build it like a muscle.
I think you called it the little wins you start experiencing after joining the military. Yeah, you start. Okay. Yeah, this is what it feels like.
Yeah, if you want to do it on a daily basis, I do a what I call an action plan, and I'm actually kind of starting to call it an attack plan for the day. But basically, you write down 5 things that you don't want to do for the day that are congruent with your goals. All right. So if you're like, hey, I'm trying to get in better shape, what do I not want to do today? I don't want to do morning cardio. Write that down. Check. I'm trying to grow my business. What do I not want to do today? Freaking talk to people, man. Yeah. All right, let me make 10 contacts, right? Check. All right. So just like you can literally just write that down and just start working on it a little bit every single day. Or wake up Saturday, hey man, what do I not want to do? And start there.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, that's a great way to put what we've talked about today into action and start invoking change now.
Yeah.
Excellent. So where can we send people if they want to know more about what you're doing?
Yeah. Instagram. So go straight to Instagram. Just if you're going to check me out and connect with me, I'd love to talk to you guys in the DM. Just make sure you spell my name right so you don't get lost. It's JeramiahSolven. Okay, so Jeremiah Solven. There's an A in the middle of the Jeremiah that most people miss.
And for everyone's situational awareness, his name is correctly spelled behind him on the whiteboard. You'll see that if you look at YouTube or the sound bites.
You were just teetering on the edge there. It's like, oh, I hope he says
no. I had a friend help make sure I was on point there. Yeah. And then we will also have your Instagram and some of your other stuff in the bio for the show, so people can just click on that if they're lazy, and they'll take them, or they want a shortcut, and they'll take them right to you.
Yeah, I got a link in my bio on Instagram that can drive you towards either my podcast or whatever. But yeah, just hit me up on Instagram. And I love it when I get a message that says, hey, I listened to this podcast, heard you on this story. I'll connect with you right out the gate, get to know you a little bit. I'll try to lead with value. I'll find out a way like to help you, whatever you're going through, as much as I can inside of a text messaging situation. So I'll do my best to make it worth your time too.